Algernon Charles Swinburne mused, "Night, the shadow of light, and life, the shadow of death." Hello once again, I'm Don Jackson. But writer Mary E. Potter in the Berkshire Eagle revealed how the shadow can be a blessing in disguise. She says, and I quote, "Moonlight softens our faults. All shabbiness dissolves into shadow." And someone else said, "The darkness hides our faults and smooths the lines." Those who aren't beautiful in the classic sense of the word take on an air of mystery as the shadows deepen. Does not the cereus, the cactus that blooms at night, signify transient beauty? I'd like to help your mind create some more shadows. The transient beauty, if you will, that accompanies the heartbeat of the internet. The words of an anonymous writer from a century ago. Somebody's courting somebody, somewhere or other tonight. Somebody's whispering to somebody. Somebody's listening to somebody under this clear moonlight. Near the bright river's flow, running so still and slow, talking so soft and low, she sits with somebody. Under the maple tree, deep though the shadow be, plain enough they can see, bright eyes has somebody. No one sits up to wait, though she is out so late. All know she's at the gate, talking with somebody. Tiptoe to the parlor door, two shadows on the floor. Moonlight, reveal no more, Susie and somebody. Two sitting side by side, float with the ebbing tide. Thus, dearest, may we glide through life, says somebody. Somewhere, somebody makes love to somebody tonight. Once again, a few excerpts from the book The Shadow Club, The Greatest Mystery in the Universe, Shadows and the Thinkers Who Unlocked Their Secrets. Written by Roberto Casati, translated from the original Italian by Abigail Asher. Casati writes, and again I quote, "Shadows are seductive because they're so strange. And the language of metaphor has drawn abundantly from the wealth of images born of shadow. Shadows are immaterial. They have no substance, and for this reason, a person who is the shadow of his former self only appears to be what he once was. One supports a shadow government, and it's useless to chase after shadows. In German, they say you can't jump on your shadow. In other words, you can't achieve the impossible. Hades was populated with the shadows of the dead, with bloodless duplicates of beings that were once healthy and whole. Shadows are parasites of the objects casting the shadows, whose shape they sometimes reproduce. They always seem to be relegated to the realm of appearances. A shadow is an image, a representation of the object casting the shadow, but it is an incomplete representation, a silhouette representing only an outline. The interior of the shadow is indistinct, and it says nothing about the object casting the shadow, except that it is opaque, not a transparent object. Pindar said, "Man is the dream of a shadow." And Emmanuel Carnevali wrote, "All shadows whisper of the sun." A few more metaphors from Roberto Casati's book, The Shadow Club. Someone losing his sight says that he sees shadows. A shadow is a trace. The ancient Greek term for shadow also means trace. One can speak without the shadow of a doubt, end quote. And as in Paul Anka's case, it's beyond the shadow of a doubt. Again, Roberto Casati in The Shadow Club writes, "As an image, a shadow can also stand in for the object projecting it and become its double. Some shadows rise to the rank of real literary characters, and not only the shadows of Peter Schlemiel and Peter Pan. In Stravinsky's Rake's Progress, the demon is called Nick Shadow. In English, we are shadowing someone if we are tailing him. In this case, the bodily shadow becomes something that you cannot shake off. In medieval Arabic, by contrast, the name for a shadow is the follower," end quote. During the golden age of radio and recently in a major motion picture, there was a character who fought against evil, and you couldn't fool him because, as we were all told, the shadow knows. Casati continues, "Because a shadow can hide an object, it is linked not only to the physical aspect of the absence of light, but also to the perceptual aspect, to visibility. Criminals plot in the shadows. Other people are relegated to the shadows or are brought out of the shadows. A written text can have shadows or passages that are not very clear, and sometimes to save a friendship, you have to clear away the shadows that threaten it. Shadows can hide things because they're dim or even obscure. In American Sign Language, a shadow is a black stain. Obscurity can protect and it can dominate. You are in someone's shadow when you are protected by his power. But the protector can also overshadow whoever is close to him, keeping him from being seen. The name of the book is The Shadow Club, the greatest mystery in the universe, shadows, and the thinkers who unlocked their secrets, by Roberto Casati, translated from the Italian by Abigail Asher. Casati goes on to say, "There is a lesson to be learned from all these linguistic, ethnographic, and literary reports, a lesson about the constellation of images gathered around the idea of shadows. The reports seem to say that we are fascinated by shadows, and it's not hard to see why. Shadows do weird things. A shadow is the image of a body, and it permits us to recognize its owner. It depends on the body. In fact, it's tightly bound to it. But it is also a ghostly, immaterial image. It is colorless, and it is flat. It may be the only non-abstract object to be truly two-dimensional. Shadows grow and shrink. They appear and disappear. They are tied to their owners, and yet they cannot be captured." Some lines later, he says, "Shadows seem to inhabit a part of the mind that opens onto the objects department. Shadows are physical things, and also opens onto the psychic department. Shadows are images of the soul. Shadows bear witness to the meeting between the world of material things and a world in which matter does not seem so important. It is a capricious world. Shadows come and go without our being able to interfere with their plans. That is both evanescent and mysterious. There are other kinds of shadows that can have a real impact on our lives. Richard Eyre from Utopia and Other Places, published by Bloomsbury, wrote of the longest shadow of all when he said, and I quote, "Our parents cast long shadows over our lives. When we grow up, we imagine we can walk in the sun free of them. We don't realize until it's too late that we have no choice in the matter. They're always ahead of us. We carry them within us all our lives, in the shape of our face, in the way we walk, in the sound of our voice, and in our skin, our hair, our hands, our heart. We try all our lives to separate ourselves from them, and only when they are gone do we find we are indivisible." End quote. Scott Russell Sanders from Townships, edited by Michael Martone and published by the University of Iowa Press, seems to expand on that thought when he wrote, and I quote, "Home ground is the place where, since before you had words for such knowledge, you have known the smells, the seasons, the birds and beasts, the human voices, the houses, the lay of the land, and the quality of light. It is the landscape you learn before you retreat inside the illusion of your skin. You may love the place if you flourished there, or hate the place if you suffered there. But love it or hate it, you cannot shake free. Even if you move to the Antipodes, even if you become intimate with new landscapes, you still bear the impression of that first ground." I hope you've been watching for the shadows in the music videos, and during the webcast, again, music about shadows. And what is a recording, in a sense, but a shadow of the original performance? That may be one way to look at it. Looked at in another way, the original recording may be what casts a shadow over all the live performances that will follow. Will any of them really be able to stand up to the original recording, the original performance? There are so many things to learn from shadows. Khalil Gibran, in the Song of the Flower, wrote, "I am the lover's gift. I am the wedding wreath. I am the memory of a moment of happiness. I am the last gift of the living to the dead. I am a part of joy and a part of sorrow. But I look up to see only the light and never look down to see my shadow. This is the wisdom which man must learn." And one last thought from Roberto Casati in his book, The Shadow Club. He stated that some believe that the shadow is the visible form of the soul. In that instance, you might want to take a long look at your own shadow when contemplating that thought. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.